Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective. Relationships, the Betrayal Game. Join us April 30th at 7 p.m. on Facebook Live and YouTube. A three-generational perspective.
Hello, everyone. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good.
So I just want to come on and go ahead and get started. Thank you for everyone who's watching, who came out to support. We really appreciate it. This is going to be a very interesting topic, the betrayal. We all have somebody who has betrayed us in life. And I'm just going to start out with introducing, we have Ambria. Ambria is a marriage coach, and she's also the mother of two children, and she's been married for 20 years. So thank you for showing up, Ambria. Tamara is a young adult. She's still single currently. And I really appreciate her showing up and spending some time with us, older people. So thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And today, what we're basically talking about is one of the articles or one of the devotionals out of the book, Blinded by Sight, The Flip Side. I guess I should introduce myself, huh? I'm the author, Lisa Keaton. I'm also married, and I have a blended family. And so I've been married for it'll be 15 years pretty soon in May. And I have 5 children and 8 grandchildren. And so we'll be talking a little bit about the different aspects of family. So let's get started. So we're going to talk about Rachel and Leah out of the 2 sisters' pain from the book Blinded by Sight, The Heart Matters. And the story starts with actually Rachel has died. She just gave birth to her son. And Leah is reflecting back on their relationship and the things that they went through and the changes they went through. And a lot of the changes that they went through because the father forced them both to marry pretty much the same man, and Jacob. But just like Leah and Rachel, Jacob was also a victim because the father got him drunk and he gave him Leah instead of giving him the woman he truly wanted to marry, which was Rachel. And so Jacob ended up working 14 years for the both of them. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the things that Rachel went through, the problems that it caused, and stuff like that. Rachel felt, or I should say, I'm sorry, Leah felt rejected, jealous, and unloved during this whole relationship. And it caused a lot of problems with her and her sister's relationship, and also with some of the kids' relationship. What we're going to talk about today is mainly the two sisters and how we currently to our life now. So basically, how we relate that to is, we as women sometimes get into relationships with, men that aren't necessarily healthy for us or don't necessarily give us what we need in life. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to kind of focus on that aspect, even though we know that Jacob was also the victim in this relationship. So we're going to start out just with like a simple question, and we want to just talk about how someone has possibly made decisions for you that weren't in your best interest and was for their best interest. So we're just going to start out with that question.
I first, can I start?
Yes. Yes.
I wanted to say that I thoroughly enjoyed reading through the story in the book, and one of the primary reasons was that it was so easy to relate it to your own life. I think sometimes when we're reading the biblical stories directly from the Bible, it's difficult sometimes to kind of put yourself in it, but this helps you put yourself right up in it. So thank you, Author Lisa, for
Thank
that.
you.
So in reading the story, I kept finding it. Even though I was trying to relate it to different situations in my life, um, I have this weird thing where I oftentimes will relate things that happen in my life or things that I'm reading or experiencing with songs or movies. And so the first thing that came to mind was The Color Purple and how Mr. or Albert um, went to meet Celie and Nettie's father to ask if he could marry his Nettie. And so when the father said, basically the father was selling them to the highest bidder. So it put me in that same mindset. But thinking about the movie, I was thinking about how he said that Celie was older and she wanted to marry first, but she was spoiled twice. I was an adult when I realized that spoiled meant that she'd had two children. And so the fact that she had two children and they were his, even more so made it kind of relate because I felt like he was trying to get rid of her. Like she's spoiled because of me twice. I'm having to feed her and clothe her. And so, go ahead and take her. Then when he said that she's ugly and she won't make you feed her or clothe her, that means you can have her, but I'm done with her. She's ugly. And um she's been spoiled twice, so take her off my hands. But Nettie, you flat out can't have, not now, not never. And so that made me think about Rachel and how just putting the two together, that was the first thing that came to mind for me. And so if you've seen that movie, the whole thing, just even thinking about it now, just sends a sharp pain through my neck because I'm like, this is how we're gonna get rid of our daughter that you think is unattractive. So yeah, that's what I associated that with.
And that's kind of like Rachel and Leah because they said Leah wasn't as pretty as Rachel. And
Right.
so, the father probably was trying to get rid of her. You never know what his thought pattern was because he was like, oh, she's the oldest. She has to be married first, which, Jacob was like, why you never told me that in the beginning? Because he probably would
Right.
have never agreed to work in those first 7 years. So that was abusive right there for him.
Right.
Right.
But then I would think that, and back then I guess women didn't have a whole lot of say, that Leah would have not wanted to marry somebody who was in love with her sister. But sometimes you don't have a say, or people make decisions for you that you don't necessarily aren't for your best interest.
Right. True.
I would say for me, with my long, extensive 22 years of living, I would say I haven't had much experiences when it comes to people making decisions for me, but I will say, now that you said that, Embria, the color purple, as many times as I've watched the movie, I see how a father's decision can affect the whole household and how it can affect our perspectives of as a woman. Not trying to get into like the gender roles and everything, but women, our essence is very nowadays heavily dependent on a man sometimes, and the power of words. So I'll just say, without having someone making decisions for me, I have made some decisions that were heavily influenced by others. So peer pressure, like being in high school, also graduating, going to college, finally making decisions on my own. Yet having that, having my parents, my mother telling me some things just to try to keep me out of going down the wrong path, or but just still trying to learn my way around being a new teenager, just having this more like freedom, this responsibility of taking care of my own temple myself, but not having the wisdom to do so. So I was still ignorant in some ways. So I can't really connect in the way that someone has made decisions for me, but I definitely say I have had the experience of someone trying to at least lead me on the right path. If that makes sense.
Okay. So I have two examples of where somebody else has made a decision for me. And this is, of course, in my past before I was married and I was out there in the dating scene. So this one guy that I dated, and it was very short lived. We hadn't even been dating that long. He gave somebody else my phone number, told them what I did for a living, and like web design and stuff like that, and had the lady call me. And the lady called me and she's talking to me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? How did you get my number? Who are you? I had no clue. And she's like, he never told you? And I'm just like, he never said anything to me. And so I said, can I just, get back with you? And so I called him and I'm like, what's going on? And pretty much his response was, you don't have anything to do anyway. Well, needless to say, that relationship ended right there that day, because I'm just like, if you're not communicating and we're just starting to go out, then I can't imagine what this is going to be like later on. And the fact that he was already divorced, and I don't know what happened in his first marriage, but if that was any indication, then it was very understandable. So that was one example. The other example that I had was I went out with this guy for a couple of months. We seemed to get along great. He was in the Navy. He was a military guy. Um, he was always, took me out, wine me, dine me. Went to the movies. Just a good relationship. At least I thought it was building on a good relationship. And then the holidays happened. So during Thanksgiving time, he disappeared. And I didn't think about anything about it because sometimes you're military, whatever. You go home, you visit family, but there was like no contact on his part, and I couldn't get in touch with him. So I was like, okay, you know what, no big deal. He came back. I'm thinking, fine, everything's good. We started seeing each other again, and then Christmas rolled around. So he disappeared again. No contact. I couldn't get in touch with him. And one day I was just sitting down, and me and my girlfriend were sitting there, and we were just talking, and she just got quiet, and she looked at me, and she was like, you know what? She was like, he's married. She said, because there is no reason why he would disappear for Thanksgiving and Christmas and not have any contact with you. And so at that time, I was doing my reserve duty, and I was living in California, and I had to fly back to Maryland to do my reserve time. And I got to Maryland, I got situated, got set up, and then he started calling again. And I was like, do you have something that you need to tell me? And he was like, no, I don't have anything. And I'm like, yeah, you have something that you need to tell me. And he was like what? I said, the fact that you're married. He was like, how do you know? And I'm just like, so you made this, my intention was never to ever marry or date a married man, because I've always believed in you reap what you sow. And so I was just like, you took that decision away from me. You took my choice away from me. You took, all my rights away from me, and you made this decision. I'm like, we're not even married. We don't, we're not even talking about getting married. You can't even get married because you're already married to somebody else. But you were playing this game, and that was just completely wrong. So that's my take on people making decisions for you and not giving you an option to say what you need to say or to be a part of that decision or to give you even the right. So it's taken away from you, which is not good.
So can I ask? I want to ask a question. How did that make you feel? Like when they that person made a decision for you, and the especially the Thanksgiving and Christmas. How did that make you feel? Like and also how did you have the courage to say something? Because some women don't. Some women believe that silence is the best answer. So because they want to not seem not controlling, but they want to let things just be, because sometimes they want it so bad, or they want that connection, that affection, that they'll get it from anywhere. And but we know that all attention isn't always good attention. So what
Right.
gave you the courage to say, you know what, no, even though, yeah, he may be possibly he may be a good guy if he wasn't married. Like what gave you the courage to say, no, I'm not even going to take it there?
Okay, so this is before Christ. Definitely before Christ. So I'm just going to tell you my response at that time. My father made a statement to me at one time before he passed. And he said, "You will never get married because you're too independent."
Hmm.
Okay. So that was the statement he made. So I've always had that independent streak. I've never felt like I actually needed a man to make it in life. I always had my own career. I always had my own, finances. I've always had my own stuff together, my act together. And so I didn't necessarily have a need to have a man. Now I wouldn't mind. I wanted to have a man because you know what? We can share life together and we can do things together. But I didn't need a man in, the way some people do. And so I was pretty strong willed, and I could still be pretty strong willed. But I was just pretty, self sufficient as far as being able to take care of myself. And that's what made it easier for me to say no and walk away. And I walked away from a lot of stuff.
Mhm.
And maybe some stuff was good for me that I shouldn't have walked away from. But then there's times when um, I have walked away from stuff and, you not know whether it's good or bad. I would say no first. And I still say no first a lot of times now. And then I'll think about it. And I'm like, well, you know what, Lord, should I have said yes? And sometimes I do go back and I'll correct myself. But my first response is usually no.
Right.
It's a blessing for you to be able to just cut something like that,
Yeah.
to
Mm.
be able to separate the emotional attachment from what you know is going to be best for you because of the independence and just walk away.
Right.
That's a that's a rare gift.
And that's why I asked, like, what courage, what did you have then? Because I know personally, I went through a situation where it was hard for me to say no and to gain like my power back of making a decision myself. So it just was something that popped up in my head, was like, well, how did you get that courage? Because sometimes it takes women years, to even say something, even if it's not no, but to just like speak back, just to stand in their place and not, getting off their post. So I just want to know a little bit more about that, because some women actually need to hear that, men and women, to be able to stand confident in where they are and who they are as well.
And I'm not saying it's you have to do what's right for you. Um,
Right.
I watched my mom and dad and their relationship, and my dad worked, but my mom also worked too. But then my mom was responsible pretty much for a lot of the stuff in the household, even though she had a job outside the household. And I was like, "There's no way in the world. It's a shared responsibility. Cooking and cleaning and doing all the stuff and helping with the kids and stuff like that. It's all shared." And not to say that my father didn't share in some of that responsibility. He did, but I couldn't stand when he cooked because he would use like every pot in the kitchen. Then we would have to clean up. But he would cook and he would clean and stuff like that. But the majority of the responsibility, was my mom's. And even though she had a job outside the house. And so that was and I think that helped me with a lot of my independence, just thinking, mm-mm, mm-mm, I'm not going down that road. I'm not, yeah. It's not going to be like that. You're not going to make all the decisions for me. And I'm learning now slowly in church that the man is the head. And so I've had to make some adjustments in my marriage to not, disrespect my husband in that way, to give him that authority to make the final say. Do I always agree? No. Am I always submissive? No. Do I still speak my mind? Yes. So, it's still a work in progress. So that's where we at with that. And I'm sure Ambria, I've talked to her and she's a marriage marriage coach.
Know all about it.
Yeah.
I too have had to learn to appreciate male authority. It's a wonderful thing when the person with the authority is using it right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, it's a wonderful thing. We were created to desire that,
Yes.
not to be abused, but when a man uses his authority the right way, it's something that we desire and it's healthy.
That is very true. That is very true.
Well, y'all pray for me.
Hopefully you'll get there one day and all things will be well. Because right now you're learning at a young age and learning
Yes.
how to walk in Christ.
Yes.
So and we're going to go on. Have you been close to someone you allowed another individual to come between you? So say for instance, if you had a friend and then you met a guy or you met a significant other and that person either came in and you dismissed your girlfriends because you just wanted to focus on that person, or have you allowed that guy to come in and he isolates you from your friends or your family? So that's kind of where we want to go. I don't really have an example of like that because because I was so strong or I am so strong. I don't, I think it's, hey, if I like you, then you should be able to meet my friends. You should be able to hang out with my friends. We should all be able to get along. We should all be able to um, communicate, be together, family, friends, whoever, and not have any separation.
And that's how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But I was doing something and I have no business doing. So it was for me, I tried in my experience with that little situation that I was going through, I tried to keep it a secret. But I kept it a secret the wrong way, which I don't know why I did that. But I definitely can recall when I was with my friends, and I've been friends with them for 5 plus years. So we know each other. We talk to each other all the time. Like at that time, because I had just graduated high school, so we were still like just trying to figure out what we were doing, where we were going to go, our career paths and things and such. And then I met a guy, and I just allowed his influence of like all of who he was to just pour out on me, and I just went wherever he went. And it definitely took a toll on me because even my mother and me and her are really close. Even she told me that things have changed drastically within our relationship.
Oh, wow.
But I was so taken away that I didn't really care about what she was saying to me. It was like a some type of power. I don't know, but it was definitely strong enough to isolate me from the ones that I cared about. And I didn't notice that until a year later. And I did go back and apologize to them and corrected my behavior and ask for their forgiveness. It definitely changed my perspective of boundaries,
Yes.
um, allowing people to come in and out, like how they should come to me and how I should come to another person. It changed my perspective of how I view myself as well. That I am not just a woman, but I'm a woman of God.
Mhm.
So I should treat myself with respect. He allowed me to have this temple to represent Him. So then I didn't know that because I definitely was ignorant, very gullible, and very naive. But now, as the years go by, and as God has put me in more situations to show myself clear to other people who are maybe going through the same things, like younger people my age, little cousins, or just going through their little puppy love phase or whatever. I now have that experience to tell them, like, hey, you don't want to go there. You don't want to ruin, your close friends, the relationships, because you don't know where God is going to take you all. Maybe do some networking, some businesses together, and you just don't want to ruin that friendship. So I can definitely say boundaries was something that I'm still working on, but He gave me more clarity of what that is and what it's like.
Okay. So how did you get out of that relationship?
Woo! Oh, I prayer. I didn't know that I was in so much bondage until I got out of it.
Right.
I didn't know that I was trapped, and I really didn't know that it was a soul tie until I noticed that when I look back, I was praying every day. Like I was in prayer, I was journaling a lot. I took a lot of time out for myself. I did isolate myself, but it was for that reason.
Right.
So it wasn't to isolate again to like just go and do whatever I wanted to, but it was because I was trying to come out. It was because God was definitely breaking the chains, and I just it was so much that I was releasing anger, bitterness, shame, guilt, and I just didn't want anyone else to get hurt because I did hurt my mother in the process. Our relationship was a bit fragile, and I definitely hurted myself. So I was clearly trying to hear from God because I definitely didn't want to hear from anybody else who couldn't give me answers.
Yeah.
So just being in prayer with God and consecration with Him, silence, solitude. It was like I took a sabbatical, yet I was home in this room. So I was just, it was a lot of things just going on at once. But definitely prayer helped me get out of that whole mess. So deliverance is what was going on.
And Bria, you have anything you would like to add?
Um, well, what I would like to add is that for me in that situation, I think I got married really young. It's considered to be really young now, but I don't know if it was then. But I got married at 24, and so being married then, and we didn't have any premarital counseling. Like now, it's encouraged. Yeah, it's a thing now, but back then it was like, oh, I'm in love or this feels right, let's just do it. And so it's not that old. It was like early 2000s, but still, it was a little kind of back in the day. And I didn't properly sever past ties to old relationships because I just didn't know any better. And so that I allowed that to create a divide in my marriage early on, and that would be my example. I think that there was a lot of work that needed to be done to place boundaries with relationships. Because being at 24, I was still friends with certain people I went to school with, and just had a lot of relationships that I didn't realize were unhealthy, and that I was tied to them in some way, and it didn't allow me to really cleave to my husband like I needed to then. And so when in the first couple of years, when it's supposed to feel like the honeymoon stage, it was us trying to figure out why we did this. We have done this, and it was because we hadn't properly severed ties to past relationships and placed boundaries where they needed to be. And so yeah, that's my example with that.
I think sometimes we don't, I got married. I've been married for 15 years. Um, but even
That's a
with
long
that, I've ran into people who, you know, married couples who tell their spouse that you can't have friends with a single person, or they don't want their spouse hanging out with single people. And because we got married older, or I got married older, my husband has, he was previously married, and he has all kinds of friends, especially from being in the Navy. He has female friends, he has male friends, he has, just friends, and he had a life before me, and I had a life before him. And I don't see anything wrong with the opposite sex being friends. I know I was watching Steve Harvey the other day. He made a statement saying he don't have any female friends, and I think that comes with trust. I trust my husband. And there's nothing I could do to ever stop him if that's what he wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
Yeah.
like, if that's in you, then that's just in you. That's who you're going to be, and that's what you're going to do. But if it's not in you, then you're not going to do it. So, and I know we all can have everything in us, but it depends on what you allow to control you or what you allow to dominate you. So you can have stuff, you can have that desire, you cannot have that desire, but you have to be comfortable with who you are and be comfortable with the person who you married and trust them to do what's right, hopefully by you, and make the right decision. So I needed to.
That's a very, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, finish. Go ahead.
That's a very healthy mindset about that. In working with couples in the early stages of their relationship, sometimes in the later stages, you'd be surprised at how the approach to that differs by age group. Like Tamara, for example, like how do you feel about having friends of the opposite sex that are single?
Um, I'm gonna be mature here. And I was gonna point that out. I was gonna say the younger generation, because we're not big on getting to know ourselves. Like the insecurity plays a huge part. It's just insecurity plays a huge part in why relationships in my generation don't work at all. So I feel like that lies in okay, you can have like your best friend. Say I've been best friends with the dude for 5 years, and then I meet somebody. Well, I'm sure if I had this my best friend for 5 years, we've been through some things, we talked a lot, and we have that connection. I would still want him to be in my life. But I just believe that some boundaries now needs to be set now that I have someone who's pursuing me. My best
Mm.
friend he was not pursuing me in that way in a relation, like an intimate relationship, but we were best friends, we do have that connection. However, someone else is pursuing me with the intention to marry. So I honestly think it just has to be healthy in a sense. Now I'm saying that to be mature, but he better not be talking to nobody.
So he couldn't have another friend, a girlfriend that he's known his whole life, his whole childhood.
That's why I say I'm just not ready, because I'm not. It's like I'm there, but I'm not there.
Right.
It's just I don't know. It'll have to definitely take like 10 sessions for me to understand that having opposite sex friendships like platonically is okay, but it's just it ain't sometimes it just don't sit right with me, because sometimes the women they just a little slick. But like, I mean, I'm 22, so I'm still in that mindset that there's no way that y'all are just friends. But as you get older, I'm sure you got, and that trust, and you guys have been through some things, and he's intentional, with whoever he's pursuing, and he knows exactly who he wants, and he has his eyes just on that one person, then sure. But sometimes I'm just like, there's no way. So it's like a 50-50. I can't really say.
I kind of think the way that Lisa, well, that the both of you do about it. But my husband is the total opposite. He's like, nah.
He
He's like, friend. He's something about you keeps him there, and it's not just the childhood friendship or he always feels like it's something more. So we have a healthy debate about that often.
That's
But how do
interesting.
you? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's interesting because my husband being in the Navy, he has some friends. One of his friends, Angie. I mean, I call her and she calls me, and we're probably talk more than him and her talk. And so,
Yeah.
we're friends. And he has other friends that I've talked to on the phone, or if they come in town, we'll go hang out and stuff like that. So I'm just like, that's your past. That's it's what it is. It's it's not a big deal to me.
The youngest couple that we mentor, I remember asking their input. Like we work with so many different couples that I will pull on them from time to time and be like, "Tell me what you think about this from your perspective." And the youngest couple that we work with, I asked her how she felt about her husband because I know her husband has female friends, but they seem to do great with it. And she said that she actually wants to know his female friends and wants to get to know them and hang out with them because she thinks that they're cool. But what she also explained to me was that they do have healthy boundaries. Like she's not texting and calling late at night. She knows her well. And I think that's the difference sometimes is how open is this relationship?
Mhm.
Is there anything that's hidden? You know what I mean? And I think if those things are disclosed and put on the table, it's possible to have a healthy relationship, and it's actually good, especially if she was like, I want to get to know them. Like I desire to know his female friends because they seem like good people. And so I thought that was a healthy approach to it.
That's a very healthy approach to it.
Very
And
healthy.
speaking of you, because you said you were kind of, I guess, ignorant to some ways, and that's a word that you use. But I think you're a wise young lady. Um,
Thank
but have you considered like being maybe how can I say it? Do you feel like your self-esteem is low, or maybe you feel like maybe inadequate in some kind of area, or you just not trusting, or what do you think causes that, and how does that make you feel if you didn't know that he would have friends or female friends?
Yes, that's a great question. So I do I have in high school I still do struggle with some type of body image. So some insecurities do play along with that, which is why I say we have to like this generation because there's so much that we see social media, entertainment, Hollywood, all of that. So many body things that we see like just models, you know, all of the things of what they say we should be, and I took all of that on, and I took
Mhm.
on all that weight for a couple of years. I say throughout high school, I saw what people liked, what they didn't like, and I put it all on me. I don't know. I like soaked it all in. So when I was in that situation, the reason why I feel as though I got so soaked up in that is because I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be heard, and I felt I did not have my parents were not my parents reassured me most of the time. My grandparents, I was in college while like doing high school and things, so I got a lot of reassurance from all over friends and everything. But that was one of my like desires for just someone else of the opposite sex to be to see me, to make me feel as though that I was adequate and was enough, because I just didn't get that from I didn't get it like how I wanted. So it definitely, when it comes to having the opposite sex, like friendships, platonic friendships, that's something that is like a trigger to me because of what I went through. I still can't see how I can't really correlate on how you could still be friends with someone who's in a relationship, like, you know, and it's they're married, you know, you're married, like y'all are in there, yet you still have like your husband say, like there's still something that you're trying to get, you know. I'm not sure, yet you belong to somebody else. So it's just yeah, a lot of things that I have to learn how to let go of once I do start um once the Lord allows me to be in a relationship, when that season comes. But right now I still am working on that, like the insecurity, the body shaming, having confidence in him, not only myself, but knowing that I am worthy, and knowing that I've always been beautiful, knowing that I've always been claimed by him, and I don't need the opinion and the validation of others. So still working on that, but that is a huge piece of why, like, you see, my perspective is this different from you guys, because I went through something that was a bit traumatic, and it just morphed everything into like inside out. So I'm trying to learn and unlearn at the same time.
Okay. All
That's
right.
I'm
good.
getting there.
And that's what it's all about. It's about growth, and
Yes.
it's about changing, and having a good foundation, and knowing who you are, and being comfortable with where you are in life, and knowing that you know what, you are good enough by
Right.
yourself,
Right.
and a person that comes into your life is there to enhance that and not make you, because God made you, so
Yes.
you're already made, so nobody else can do that, so you just got to be you.
Yes. Authentic.
And choosing to love you means loving all of you.
Yes.
And when somebody is for you, even the things that you're uncomfortable with or don't like, they actually like. I can run through a list of stuff that I don't like about myself, and my husband gives me this look like, "What?" It's like I'm confused. Like I don't even. So yeah, it's you're enough, just like
Yes.
you are.
Well,
I
we got
am.
to go ahead. I'm
Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that I find myself comparing myself to others still, even knowing better. It's like I
Hmm.
still do it on a day to day, just with society in general, social media, being at work sometimes. I work with people who are much more educated.
Yeah.
Um, And at times I put myself in this box, like, okay, you're not good enough because your level of understanding isn't here, or and I deal with that all the time on a day to day, body insecurities. um there's so much that contributes. There's so much in our lives that contributes to why or how we'll compare ourselves to others. And so it's a part of learning to love yourself the way that you are, and to see the good and the greatness in how you were created. Even I this statement always sticks with me, and it's called beautifully broken. And we're broken. I mean, we're broken into little pieces, but it's God makes it something beautiful. And there's beauty even in the brokenness. What we looked at as fractured and a mess, is there's beauty in it when he cleans you up.
Yes.
And when you just said that word about the broken pieces, I thought about mosaic. You know how the
Mhm.
mosaic, you have all the little different pieces to put together, but when you put it all together, it's just a beautiful piece of work.
Yes.
And
Right.
that's how we are. We are all God's creation, and we all are a beautiful piece of work. And we have to always remember to love ourselves, because you know what? God loves us. He loves us first.
He
And
does.
so we're going to kind of wrap everything up. I'm going to give you guys a chance to say your last, whatever you want to contribute, or however you want to say what you need to say.
One last thing I do want to say, I'm glad you mentioned that, Embria, being beautifully broken. That was actually the first time that God spoke to me. I was here in my room, and I was going through the whole process of like shedding. I don't know if you guys know, like butterflies, like the cocoon. They start off as, and then I was going through the phase of like breaking out. And I remember I was just sitting here crying at my desk. I was studying for my test to become a nurse. And I remember crying because I was like, Lord, why does this have to be so hard? Like, I know I can do it, and I know you didn't place me here to not do it, because you're going to finish this good work. But I remember my phone, I had broken my phone. It wasn't working. And I was like, Lord, my phone broke. Everything just going wrong. And it was like shattered, but it was still working. Like I could still hear phone calls and texts come through. And I just looked up, and I was just silent for 5 minutes. And I looked at my phone. The minute I looked at my phone, I heard him clearly say, I can still use you in your brokenness just as I'm using that phone. I said, you know what? I said, no way, because all of everything that I had just went through, that's all I felt. I just felt broken. I felt misused, misplaced. I just felt unworthy. I felt like just started breaking, but I just felt like trash, like unworthy, like I was just useless, like just toss it out. And when he said that he could still use me in my brokenness, I'm talking about the phone is just shattered, like the back. I don't even know how it came up, but if you try to give it to somebody, they're gonna throw it in the trash because you can no longer use it as if it was a phone that was clean and not shattered, and it was in pieces, in perfect pieces. So when he told me that, I was like, wow, God, I'm gonna hang on to that word. I hung on to that word for 2 years. And I'm still using that word today. So in everything that makes, like, I feel as though it may go wrong, every mistake I make, I've been forgiven, and I know that in my brokenness he still uses me. So that's my testimony.
Yeah, that's
That is
good.
wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, for me, the book has really helped. This story has just helped me reflect in so many ways. Um, just how we can be in situations and not even realize that somebody is controlling things for their good and not for our own. And I'm learning now in life that I'm learning that part of it, that I need to, that what I want is okay. That it's okay to not allow the actions of others to dictate what happens to me. And that is, it's right for me not to want that. And so I'm at this stage of my life, I'm learning a lot that I wish I had have learned when I was younger. But I'm here and I'm learning it now when I was supposed to. And so I'm thankful for that. And I appreciate you all being so transparent. And Lisa, thank you for doing everything that you've done with this book.
Thank you. And I'm still learning. A friend of mine came to church today, and I was like, all the stuff the pastor talked about today about marriage. I'm like, wow, I wish I would have knew this when I first, before I got married, so that I could go into a marriage with the right set of eyes and in the right way and the right mindset. And so learning never stops. I'm gonna be learning till I die.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing to be able to learn. Somebody made a comment, and I was going to read it real quick, and it was actually for, um, oh, I think I just lost it. I'm sorry. It was for,
That was
yeah, to Myra. Somebody had wanted to make a comment to you about the scripture and how you were made to love yourself and just love God and not be dependent on somebody else. And I'm not sure. Oh, here it is. It says scripture tells us that we should remember that we were made to be free. As the Bible says, you, my brothers and sisters, are called to be free. That was in Galatians 5:13. Remember that we should trust in God and ourselves to take care of our needs, not the people we're dating. The things that Tamara is facing are holding her in bondage. God died on the cross so we could be free. So that
Amen.
was in the comments that was made online. But anyway, just to wrap it up, we gotta each have boundaries, like we said, so we can be free, not be tied to allowing other people to control us if it's not what God has for us. To make sure that we know who we are in Christ, to make sure that we continue to love ourselves as He loves us. Um, to to not let anybody isolate you from people, especially not isolate you from your relationship with Christ. If you already have a relationship with Christ, hopefully you find somebody that you're equally yoked with, so that you can work it together. And like me, I didn't know before I got married, so thank God that He's still in the midst of our marriage and stuff like that, and we're working on it and pulling things together. um, Also, what, we are what God made us to be, and we just have to have confidence in ourselves, confidence in the God that made us, and just trust that He knows what's best, and He can use the good, the bad, and the ugly, and bring it all together to look like it's a mosaic picture, and use us, all of us. So we just want to thank everybody for coming on. I appreciate you guys' support, and thank you, Ambria, so much for coming out. Thank you, Tamir, for being here with me. And hopefully we can come back again and do this. I know we have some more topics to talk about Leah and Rachel, and some of the things that we were throwing throwing around this morning. Um, and so I don't even know if I want to share, but some of them are pretty good because childhood trauma, about the blended families. One was bargaining for sex. What are you willing to trade? Because they did bargain Jacob for sex. So it's really interesting topic. I love the book. Please, if you want to read some of the stories, it's called Blinded by Sight, The Heart Matters. It's on Amazon. It's also on my website. My website is www.claimedbyhim.com. And go out. If you purchase a copy, I will definitely sign it and take care of all the shipping costs, and just enjoy it and read it. And we love you guys. Take care. Thank you for everybody for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.